The cart jolts beneath you, every bump striking through your bones as though the wheels grind directly against your spine. The road has turned rough, more dirt than stone now, and the horses keep tossing their heads as if they sense something ahead, something they want no part of. You lift your head just enough to see where they're dragging you, and then you notice it, the house. It sits alone on the far edge of the village, a crooked structure leaning slightly to one side, roof sagging under years of rot. A black cloth hangs above the door, nailed into place. A sign of warning, a sign of plague. The air around it feels still, unnaturally so, as though even the wind refuses to go near. The men on the cart do not meet your eyes. They wear cloths tied over their faces, soaked in vinegar. Their hands tremble as they lift you, though they try to hide it. You hear them muttering prayers under their breath, short and hurried, as if afraid even their words might catch the sickness. Your feet touch the earth and nearly give out. The fever hasn't fully taken you, but the weakness already clings to your limbs like damp wool. The smell is the next thing that hits you, an overwhelming mixture of smoke, rot, and something metallic beneath it. It forces your stomach to twist. "Bring them forward," a voice says. A shape stands in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim interior. She steps out into the light, a broad-shouldered woman wrapped in rough wool, streaks of gray in her braid and deep lines etched into her face. She looks like someone who has not slept in days, maybe weeks. You learn her name later, Matron Elswith. For now, she simply studies you, her eyes moving from your trembling hands to the faint swelling under your arm. Her jaw tightens, not in disgust, but in resignation. Another one. "Inside," she says. The men don't wait to be told twice. They push you toward the doorway and step back, almost stumbling in their haste to leave. Before you can say a word, ask a question, plead, beg, the cart wheels groan, turning back toward the village. The horses start pulling before the whip even cracks. You take a single step forward. Then the door closes behind you. The sound of the wooden beam dropping into place is heavy and final. It echoes through the room like a sentence passed. Your eyes adjust slowly to the shadows. The house isn't large, one single room stretching longer than it is wide, rafters low enough that a tall man would brush them with his hair. The air is thick with smoke. Bowls filled with burning herbs sit on shelves and tables, releasing fumes of rosemary, juniper, and pitch. It stings your eyes and throat. "Sit," a voice murmurs. You turn to see a man in rough brown robes, a monk with a face as calm as a still pond. He gestures to a straw pallet near the wall. He introduces himself softly, voice full of gentle sorrow. "I am Brother Matthew. I will help you as best I can." His hands are steady, unlike everyone else you've seen today. Across the room, an elderly woman mutters to herself, rocking slightly. A farmer lies 2 pallets down, face flushed, eyes glassy. A young boy no older than 14 watches you with hollow caution. Each pallet holds a person suspended somewhere between hope and despair. "You'll get used to the smell," Brother Matthew says. "In time." You're not sure anyone could. The shadows shift as another figure steps forward. A priest, thin as a reed, with sunken eyes and soot on his robes, Father Arnulf. He gives you a tired nod, the kind that says he's seen too many faces enter this house and far fewer leave it. From the corner, the boy, his name is Tomas, you later learn keeps his distance, clutching a ladle used for passing water without touching anything. The fear in him is sharp and raw. "You'll stay here," Elswith says, reappearing at your side. "No leaving, not until we know if God has spared you." The rules aren't spoken fully yet, but you feel them press in from every side. Your fate shrinks to the boundaries of this dim, smoke-thick room. Outside, the sound of a distant bell breaks the stillness. A death bell, for someone else or a warning of your future. You lower yourself onto the pallet. The straw crackles beneath you. Sweat gathers at your neck despite the cold. Your heartbeat feels too loud, too fast. Every sense sharpens as though your body is bracing for something you cannot yet name. Inside this quarantine house, time moves differently. You already feel it. A world beyond the door and a world within. And now you belong to the latter. Night settles over the quarantine house like a thick woolen blanket, heavy, suffocating, impossible to push away. Without the sun seeping through the cracks in the shutters, you lose all sense of distance and dimension. Darkness fills every corner. Even the faint glow from the dying ember bowls does little more than smudge the outlines of bodies and shapes. You lie on your pallet listening. At first, it's the quiet that stands out, the kind of quiet that isn't peaceful but tense, as if the air holds its breath. But soon the sounds emerge. A cough here, a whimper, the soft rustle of someone turning over, the distant crackle of burning herbs, and beneath it all, the slow, rhythmic wheeze of the sick. Human breath has never sounded so fragile. Brother Matthew kneels near a woman a few pallets down, whispering prayers under his breath. His voice is soft but steady, a thread of calm in a room where everything else feels frayed. You hear the faint splash of water as he dips a cloth into a bowl, the gentle patting against the woman's fevered skin. Across from you, old Ragnar rocks slowly back and forth. Her hair is wild, strands falling into her face. She mutters to someone who isn't there, words tangled and slurred, fragments of memory leaking into the present. "My boys, they ran to the river, don't drink, do," her voice catches. Then she begins to hum a lullaby so old it sounds like a ghost of a song. Farther down the room, the farmer Joran twists under his blanket, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead even in the dimness. Every exhale from him is a pained rasp. Each breath sounds like it might be his last. Matron Elswith passes by now and then, laying a firm hand on his shoulder, checking the swellings under his arms. She doesn't speak. There is nothing to say. You swallow, your throat dry despite the bowl of thin, vinegary water Tomas gave you earlier. You can still see the fear in his eyes, the way he stretched out his arm awkwardly to pass the bowl without touching your fingers, the way he stepped back as soon as you took it. You try to shift your position, but the straw beneath you pricks through the thin blanket. The palate smells faintly of sweat and old urine. It isn't meant for comfort, it's meant for containment. Outside the house, the world does not sleep. A low rumble of wagon wheels drifts through the walls, accompanied by the muffled voices of men giving instructions. Then the heavy, unmistakable scrape of wood against earth, a body cart. You close your eyes. You didn't see many bodies on your way here, not directly. But you saw the smoke rising from outside the village. You saw the pits being dug. You heard the tolling bells that never seemed to stop. In the quarantine house, the sounds of the outside world arrive only in fragments. A dog barking, a woman crying, the sharp clang of the church bell, the occasional wail cut short too quickly. You breathe slowly, trying to ignore the ache under your arm where a small swelling has begun to form. You tell yourself it's just irritation, not a bubo, not yet. Maybe it will stay small. Maybe your body will fight it off. Maybe luck, holy, precious luck, has not abandoned you completely. But then you hear a sound that slices through your fragile hope like a blade. A scream. It comes from the far corner of the room, young, weak, and full of terror. The boy who arrived days before you thrashes in his pallet, gripping at his chest as if something twists inside him. Elswith rushes over, Tomas stumbling behind her. "Hold him," she orders sharply. Brother Matthew moves swiftly, kneeling beside them, taking the boy's hands gently. "It's all right," Matthew whispers. "Breathe, just breathe with me." But the boy stares wildly, gasping, pupils wide with fear. The fever has gripped him hard. You sit up before you realize you're doing it, instinct tugging at you even as caution screams to stay back. Your head throbs with sudden movement, but you can't lie still. Watching helplessly is worse. The boy finally collapses, spent. His breaths come in shaky gasps. Elswith wipes his forehead with a cloth dipped in vinegar water. "Another fever's rising," she mutters. "The nights always bring the worst of it." Her voice is tight, strained. She's been holding this house together with sheer will, and even will has a breaking point. As the room settles again, the darkness becomes thicker, heavier, as though the house itself absorbs the fear. You lie back down, staring into the blackness above you. The air feels warmer now, dense with the heat of bodies and the smoke of herbs. Sweat gathers at your temples. Your heart refuses to slow. You're not just sleeping among strangers. You're sleeping among their dying breaths, their hopes, their terror, their final moments. And you know before the night is halfway through that this first night is only the beginning. Dawn in the quarantine house does not break gently. It creeps in reluctantly, a thin gray light pushing through the slits in the shutters as if even the sun hesitates to enter this place. The air feels colder than it was in the night, though maybe it's simply the exhaustion settling into your bones. You sit up slowly. Your neck aches, your back stiff from the unforgiving palate, but you're awake, alive, and for a moment that feels like a small victory. Matron Elswith moves through the room like a commander on a battlefield. Her thick wool shawl is wrapped tightly around her shoulders, and her footsteps are decisive, purposeful. She carries a wooden ladle in one hand and a stick in the other. Tomas trails behind her, his eyes puffy with sleep but alert. Carries a fresh bowl of water mixed with bitter-smelling herbs. Elswith's voice cuts through the morning quiet. "Listen," she says, looking at each patient in turn. "Some of you are new, so hear this well. Our rules keep you alive, break them, and you risk all of us." She plants the stick on the ground with a firm thud. "1, no touching, not hands, not clothing, not blankets, not even the healthy-looking ones." Her eyes sweep over you, stern but not unkind. "The sickness passes through breath, sweat, spit. Sometimes nothing we can see. 2, no wandering, stay on your pallet unless you are called. If you fall, call for us. If you feel faint, call for us. Do not try to walk." Her gaze lingers on old Ragna, who has begun picking at the edge of her blanket with trembling fingers. Elswith touches her shoulder gently, one of the few she dares to touch. 3, no panicking, Elswith says, her voice low but firm. "Fear spreads faster than plague." Joran, the feverish farmer, groans from across the room. His breathing is rough, uneven. He clutches at his stomach as though something inside him twists. Elswith's jaw tightens. "Some of you will worsen in the coming days. We will give herbs, broth, water, but you must fight too. Fight with every bit of strength God left you." Brother Matthew steps forward then, his calm presence grounding the room. "I will come around for morning prayers," he says gently. If prayer is not your way, then simply breathe with me, quietly, slowly. Peace helps the body endure. Father Arnulf stands a few paces behind him, his posture stiff, dark rings beneath his eyes. He grips a wooden crucifix so tightly it creaks under his fingers. He doesn't speak. He rarely does. Tomas begins his rounds with the water bowl, holding it out at arm's length. When he reaches you, he stops, hesitates, then pours a small amount into your wooden cup without letting the ladle touch it. You manage a weak smile. "Thank you." He nods quickly, almost shyly. "Elswith says talking helps the mind," he murmurs. "But she also says not to get too close, so I stand here." It would almost be comical if it weren't so tragic. Your first sip burns slightly bitter herbs mixed with something stronger. It's harsh, but your throat feels less raw after swallowing. Across the room, old Ragna begins to cry softly. No one knows why. She cries without words, just long, thin whimpers like a child frightened in the night. Matthew kneels beside her, whispering to her gently, but she does not stop. Joran coughs violently, doubling over. His blanket slips, revealing the swollen lumps under his armpits, dark, angry circles surrounded by bruised flesh. Bubo swellings, plagues mark, your stomach knots. Elswith moves to him quickly. She uses her stick to tug the blanket back over him. Even she won't touch the cloth by hand. "He's worsening," Matthew murmurs as he joins her. "We keep him warm," Elswith says. "Keep him breathing, that's all we can do." For a moment, the two share a glance, tired, weary, resigned. Then Elswith turns back to the room. "New rule," she says, lifting her chin. "No talking about death in front of the sick." Father Arnulf's voice cuts through from the corner, sharp, brittle. "Death is already here." A heavy silence fills the room. Elswith turns slowly toward him. "And fear is his companion," she replies. "We don't feed either." She walks on before he can answer. Your breathing grows shallow. A pulse of heat rises beneath your arm where the swelling is. Not large, not yet, but it's there. You press your lips together. Rule 3, no panicking. You're beginning to understand why. The rules aren't just for order. They are armor. Thin, fragile armor holding back a storm. And the storm outside is nothing compared to the one rising within these walls. By midday, the quarantine house has taken on a rhythm. Uneven, fragile, but unmistakably alive. It is not the rhythm of a home, nor of a sick ward, nor even a church. It is something between all three. A place suspended between life and death, where every sound becomes amplified simply because there is so little space for anything else. You begin to notice the details. The way the smoke from the herb bowls curls upward in thin silver threads. The faint patterns of mold creeping across the beams overhead. The rustle of blankets each time someone shifts. The thick silence following every cough, everyone waiting, listening, measuring how bad it sounds. The house has its own voice, its own pulse, its own strange echoes. Elswith stops by your pallet, examining you with the practiced eye of someone who has seen every stage of this sickness. She doesn't lean close, no one ever leans close, but she watches. "How's the swelling?" she asks. You swallow. "Still small," she nods once. "Drink plenty, keep breathing slow. Panic heats the body." Her voice carries no softness, but something steadier, respect perhaps, or hope too cautious to show itself. Brother Matthew appears beside her, hands clasped in his sleeves. "And eat even if it tastes like boiled straw," he adds. "Your strength is your soldier." Elswith snorts softly. "Strength is their war horse. The soldier is their stubbornness." Matthew's mouth twitches upward, the closest thing to a smile anyone has worn in days. Elswith moves on to tend to others, but Matthew lingers a moment longer. "If you feel fear rising," he says quietly, "try counting breaths. It helps the mind settle." His calmness is a kind of medicine, a fragile one, but in this place even fragile things are precious. Across the room, Father Arnulf clears his throat sharply, calling for those who can sit upright for midday prayer. Only 3 manage it. The others are too weak or too dizzy to respond. Arnulf does not seem offended. His voice fills the room with a stern, almost scolding devotion, as though the plague itself might retreat from chastisement. The elderly woman, old Ragna, begins humming again, louder this time. A trembling, wavering melody that wins through Arnulf's booming prayers and Matthew's quiet whispers. Tomas moves with careful precision, carrying bowls, adjusting blankets with a hooked pole, refilling water jars. He walks on the very edges of the room, avoiding the center entirely. When he reaches you, he pauses. "Elswith says you're one of the lucky ones," he whispers, glancing at your swelling. "She says small ones sometimes go away." You nod. "Sometimes." He hesitates, then leans slightly closer, not enough to break a rule, but enough that you see the fear flickering in his eyes. "My father is outside the village," he says. "She sent him away before things got bad. She says I should be proud to serve here. But sometimes," his voice trails off, "sometimes he wishes he'd gone too." The words hang unspoken. He straightens quickly as Elswith calls his name. As Tomas hurries off, a sudden crash breaks through the room. A clay bowl shatters against the far wall, scattering shards across the floor. Everyone flinches. Joran, the feverish farmer, is half upright, his eyes wild. His breath wheezes in desperate, shallow gasps. He clutches his chest with one hand and stretches the other toward something only he can see. "Get it off," he cries. "Get it off me." Elswith rushes to him, stick in hand. Matthew follows, murmuring soft words, trying to coax him back. "Joran, listen to me," Elswith says firmly. "You're burning with fever, there's nothing on you." Joran thrashes harder, knocking over the remains of his broth. "The rats," he hisses. "They're crawling, crawling." Elswith grips his blanket with the stick, pinning it down so he can't flail. "No rats," she insists. "Only heat, only fear." Matthew places a cloth across Joran's forehead. "Breathe with me," he says gently. "Slow, slow." The entire room watches, not by choice. Fear locks everyone still. The old woman stops humming. Father Arnulf lowers his crucifix. Tomas freezes mid-step. You feel your own breath quicken. A strange pressure rises under your ribs, not panic yet, but the raw edge of it. Finally, Joran collapses backward, his limbs going slack. His chest heaves, his eyes drift closed. The fever has swallowed him whole. Elswith stands slowly, wiping her brow with the back of her sleeve. "Keep to your pallets," she warns, voice like iron. "The fever makes men see devils." But as she walks away, you see the truth written across her face. Sometimes the fever simply reveals the devils that were already there. Morning comes not with sunlight, but with footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps outside the boarded windows. You wake to the muffled thud of boots on frozen mud, the scrape of a wooden bar being slid into place, the clatter of metal as something is fastened. Aldred rises first, instinctively reaching for an axe that isn't there. His movements are tense, shoulders tight, eyes narrow and alert. Your mother pulls her blanket tighter around herself. Father Oswin sits upright, murmuring a prayer as if bracing for a verdict. Then the voice comes, a bailiff, unseen but unmistakable. "In the name of the Lord Sheriff and the burgesses of this town," he calls, "you are hereby confined until the sickness within runs its course. No one leaves, no one enters." His tone is flat, mechanical, a man doing a job he does not want but will enforce without hesitation. You exchange a glance with Aldred, no words needed. This is the moment the stories warned about once sealed inside. Quarantine houses became tombs more often than they became places of recovery. A second bailiff speaks, younger, voice shaking slightly. "Food will be left outside every third day. Water as needed. The dead," his voice falters. "The dead will be collected when safe." Your stomach knots, your mother whispers, "God help us." Father Oswin steps toward the door, pressing his palm against the rough wood. "Have mercy on them," he calls gently, "and remember that we still live." The older bailiff answers with something like regret. "Then pray you remain that way." A final bar slams into place, then silence. Aldred exhales, long and sharp. "We're penned like cattle." Father Oswin rests a hand on his shoulder. "We are still alive, that is God's mercy." Aldred shakes him off, not aggressively, but with a frustration born from fear. He paces the room like a caged animal. "Alive for now, perhaps." You feel that same pressure growing behind your ribs. The air seems thicker now, more crowded. The walls feel closer. Even the smell, sweat, damp, straw, old smoke, feels more oppressive. Your mother tries to stand but sways. You rush to her side, steadying her. "It's all right," you whisper. "Sit, breathe." Her hand is cold against yours. She forces a faint smile. "You sound like your father." You don't feel strong enough to deserve those words, but you hold them close. Across the room, the neighbor's boy, Edric, coughs again, a deep, rattling sound that shakes his entire frame. He clutches his ribs, face pale beneath the fever blotches. You kneel beside him. "Water," he nods weakly. You bring the cup to his lips. He sips, then winces. "Everything hurts," he whispers. His voice is small, trembling. You cannot lie to him, not here, not now, but you also cannot let him drown in fear. "We are with you," you say. "You're not alone." His eyes flick upward, desperate for reassurance. You offer a smile, a thin one but real. Behind you, Aldred continues pacing. "This is madness," he mutters. "Locking the healthy with the sick, they doom us by trying to save themselves." Father Oswin answers calmly. "We are a danger to them. They fear the plague because they have seen what it does." "And what of us?" Aldred snaps. The priest meets his gaze evenly. "We face the same, but together." The words settle between you all, soft but firm. Not quite hope, but a reminder that unity, at least, has not been taken from you. You move to the small, shuttered window. Light tries to push through the cracks, but can barely penetrate the grime and the nailed boards. Dust drifts lazily in the weak beam, swirling like tiny ghosts. Outside, faintly, you hear town life continuing, a distant cartwheel, a dog barking, someone shouting. The world keeps moving, but not for you, not anymore. You press your forehead to the cool wood. You think about the fresh air you cannot breathe, the open fields you cannot walk, the sky you cannot see. A cold wave rolls through your chest. You are not prone to panic, you never have been, but now something coils in your lungs like a tightening rope. You whisper to yourself, "Stay calm." It is not a command. It's a plea. Behind you, Aldred finally stops pacing. He takes a seat on the floor, rubbing his temples. We must set rules, he says, voice low but steadier. If we're trapped here, we survive by order, not chaos. Father Oswin nods. I agree. You turn from the window. What kind of rules? Aldred looks at each of you, his blacksmith's hands clasped tightly. About food, water, watch shifts, breathing space, work, cleaning, firewood. He swallows hard. And what to do when someone dies. The room goes still. You look at Edric, then at your mother, then at the barred door. Aldred is right. Survival now depends on more than hope. It depends on discipline. It depends on unity. It depends on the choices you make from this moment on. You inhale, exhale. Very well, you say. Let's set the rules. The house is sealed. Your fate is locked, but your will is not broken, not yet. The night drags on like a wet cloth, heavy, dark, suffocating. You sleep only in shards, drifting in and out of half-dreams filled with muffled voices, rattling coughs, and the restless groans of bodies trying to outlast fever. The brazier has burned low. Only faint embers remain, glowing like tired eyes in the dark. You lie awake, listening. The coughs, the breathing, the rustle of straw. And then one sound disappears. You don't notice at first. It's subtle, the kind of absence that sneaks in quietly. But slowly, a cold realization begins to form in your chest. Edric hasn't coughed in a long time. You sit up, heart thudding. The room is dim, the silhouettes of your companions barely visible. Your mother lies curled under her blanket, her breaths thin but steady. Aldred snores softly, an exhausted sound. Father Oswin sits slumped beside the table, head resting on his folded arms. But Edric, the neighbor's boy, is still, too still. You move closer, knees on the cold floorboards. Fingers trembling, you touch his shoulder, warm somewhat, but not warm enough. You whisper his name. Edric. Nothing. His chest doesn't rise, doesn't fall. Your stomach tightens. A deep, slow ache spreads through your ribs. You try again, louder. Edric. Aldred stirs at the sound of your voice. What is it? His tone is thick with sleep, still half dreaming. But when he sees your expression, he pushes himself upright quickly. Father Oswin wakes next. His gaze follows yours to the boy. He closes his eyes briefly, whispering a prayer you can barely hear. Your mother asks weakly from behind you, is he? You swallow, forcing the truth out through a tight throat. He's gone. The words feel heavy. They sit in the room like a stone sinking through water. Aldred curses under his breath and stands, pacing a step before stopping, gripping the wall as if the world tilted. He mutters something about it being inevitable, about plague houses always starting with one. Your mother pulls the blanket to her chin and murmurs, poor child, poor mother. Her voice trembles. Father Oswin moves toward Edric with a solemn slowness. He kneels, places 2 fingers gently at the boy's neck, a gesture meant more for ritual than confirmation. Then he arranges the boy's arms across his chest. We must prepare him with dignity, the priest says softly. God sees us even here, Aldred bristles. Touching him so soon after death, is that wise? The stories say the sickness leaks from bodies after the soul departs. The sickness, Father Oswin answers calmly, has already touched us all. Fear is more likely to kill us now than this child. Aldred says nothing, but his jaw tightens. The priest looks to you. Help me lift him. You hesitate not because of fear, but because of the sorrow pressing against your ribs. But you nod and place your hands beneath Edric's small frame. Aldred grudgingly joins, taking the boy's legs. Together, you move him to the far side of the room where spare linens and blankets lie folded. His body feels lighter than you expect. Too light. You set him down gently. Father Oswin covers him with a simple sheet. White, clean, final. The room absorbs the silence like a sponge. Aldred turns away, sitting heavily on the edge of his bedding. His hands cover his face. This is only the beginning, he mutters. It's not anger in his voice now, but fear, plain and exhausted. Your mother reaches for your hand, squeezing it with what little strength she has left. Stay close, she whispers. We must all stay close. You glance at the barred door, the one the bailiff sealed only hours ago. The wooden beams, the iron nails, the complete and unbreakable confinement. Outside, life continues. Inside, death has already begun its count. You look at Father Oswin, who is still kneeling beside the covered form, hands folded in prayer. His voice is steady, but his shoulders tremble ever so slightly. Aldred stares at the floor. Your mother holds your hand tighter. Edric lies still. And you feel something shift inside. Fear remains, yes, but beneath it something else forms, a fragile resolve, a determination to endure what comes next, a promise to yourself, to them, that you will not break easily, not here, not yet. The plague may take many things from you, but it will not take your humanity. The dawn comes slowly, a dull gray spilling through the cracks in the boarded windows. The cold has not eased. It clings to your skin, your clothes, your very bones, and you notice it more now because sleep has abandoned you. The air is thick, almost viscous, carrying the faint coppery scent of blood and the stronger, acrid tang of herbs burning in the brazier. You move cautiously among the pallets. The first morning after Edric's death, the room feels different. He is gone, but you can sense him, a presence that lingers in the silent spaces between breaths. The others are awake too, but not fully. They shuffle like ghosts, eyes glassy, hands twitching as if to find something to hold on to. Fear is no longer just a shadow. It has substance and it moves through the room like a slow tide. Old Ragna is the first to speak, her voice a thin thread. I cannot eat. My stomach turns. Her eyes are wide, frantic. She has been watching Joran, the fevered farmer, for days, noting the swellings and the bruises, the way the sickness devours him piece by piece. She's beginning to realize that proximity is poison. Tomas is already moving carefully, carrying a bowl of water and a spoon. He stops at Ragna's side, holding the cup at arm's length. Try, he says gently. Even a sip. He waits, wary. The boy has grown cautious in the last days, fearing touch as if it carries fire. You watch him, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes flit toward the shadows. He is young, but he has learned something vital. The rules are survival. Touch nothing unnecessary, speak sparingly, move with precision. Even kindness can be dangerous if it breaks the invisible boundaries. Joran groans, writhing under his blanket, his chest heaving, eyes fluttering. The swellings on his armpits have darkened overnight, black and angry. Each breath he takes seems to shake the entire room. Every small sound, the cough, the rattle, the muttered plea, cuts through the quiet like a knife. Elswith is at his side with her stick, keeping him on the pallet while whispering directions. Breathe with me, she says. Slowly, calmly, fight the heat. Her voice is steady, controlled, as if measuring each syllable can somehow hold back the fever. Father Oswin kneels nearby, murmuring prayers. Not loud prayers are not meant to summon miracles here. They are for steadiness, for grounding the fearful, for offering something human in the face of relentless disease. The sickness spreads fast. Tomas checks on the others, whispering reminders to sip water, to stay warm, to conserve energy. Even those with no visible swellings are not safe. You feel it yourself, a heat behind your shoulder, a dull ache behind your eyes, small but insistent. A warning. Aldred curses under his breath. This is madness, he says. One falls and the rest are next. How can anyone survive here? His hands shake as he grips his knees. You survive, your mother whispers, voice hoarse but steady. By following rules, by not succumbing to fear, by caring when you can but never too close. The room is filled with tension, a web of quiet anxiety. Everyone moves with purpose, everyone watching each other for signs, for weakness, for symptoms, for the first tremors of illness. You notice subtle changes. Joran's lips cracked and blue, a sheen of sweat across Ragna's forehead, Tomas's pale hands shaking as he pours water. Then the first faint rattle comes from your own chest. You freeze, you do not breathe, you do not move. You count 1, 2, 3 shallow breaths, nothing yet, relief, but the awareness is enough. The plague does not announce itself. It does not care for names or lineage or bravery. Elswith moves past, murmuring to herself. She catches your gaze briefly. There is no fear in her eyes, only calculation and acceptance. This is the place where you learn to separate panic from action, despair from necessity. Outside, faint sounds of the town continue, a cart rattling over cobblestones, a dog barking, distant shouting. That world has no hold here. Inside, the walls themselves seem to press closer with each passing hour, each new symptom, each heartbeat. The day drags. Every cough, every groan, every faint whisper is a reminder that none are safe. And yet amidst the terror, the quiet efforts, the water given at a distance, the whispered encouragement, the slow, methodical tending of fevered bodies, mark the fragile human defiance that persists here. Survival is not merely avoiding death. It is measured in small gestures, careful rules, and the courage to remain present even when hope feels distant. The afternoon air inside the quarantine house grows heavier with every hour. It is no longer just thick with smoke and herbs. It is tainted by decay. Even those not yet touched by the plague can smell it, a metallic, sour undertone that clings to clothing, hair, and skin. It is impossible to escape, even in the corners farthest from the sick. You realize almost instinctively that the body is now a presence, even before it is formally recognized. The smell drifts first as a whisper, barely perceptible, then stronger, forcing attention. It makes the stomach churn, the throat tight, the hands curl instinctively to cover mouth and nose. The house itself seems to pulse with it, as though walls absorb the disease and reflect it back into every breath. Old Ragna curls into herself, gagging quietly, but no one comforts her. Comfort is a dangerous luxury here. Even Edric's absence, the boy who succumbed first, lingers like a shadow at the edges of the room. You feel it with every step you take among the pallets, each one a potential source of contagion. Joran's fever has worsened. His skin is flushed, blotched with dark red splotches, and he coughs now with a sound that rattles his entire body. His chest heaves violently, each breath a struggle. The stick Elswith wields moves with steady precision to keep him from thrashing, but she is weary. Her arms ache from constant tension, her eyes ringed with fatigue, yet she does not complain. Father Oswin kneels beside him, murmuring prayers softly, eyes closed, a quiet anchor in a chaotic world. Even his voice is swallowed by the thick, fetid air. You feel your own chest tighten at the intensity of his presence, a reminder that faith is sometimes the only thing holding you upright. Aldred moves among the pallets like a storm contained, delivering water, adjusting blankets, keeping track of symptoms. His face is pale, sweat gleaming along his temples. You notice his hands tremble when no one watches. For the first time, you glimpse the man behind the mask of anger and bravado, a human being terrified but determined. Your mother sits beside you, her hand resting lightly on yours. She has not left your side since dawn. "It's the smell that breaks the mind first," she says quietly. Her voice is calm, almost eerily so. "The body, the fever, they are easier than this." You nod, though it is hard to argue with her. The scent of decay creeps under your nails, sticks to your hair, burns your throat. It is a reminder that death is here, unrelenting and impartial. Then comes a shift in the room. A faint gasp, a shudder, the sudden rigidity of someone who has finally succumbed. Your eyes flick to the far corner. Edric's place is empty, but another figure, Tomas, stands frozen, staring at old Ragna. She has gone rigid, lips blue, eyes wide in a final, silent scream. Her small gasp of air is the last sound she makes before collapsing. Aldred reacts immediately, but cautiously. He and Father Oswin lift her body gently to a pallet in the farthest corner, covering her with a blanket. No tears are shed, none can afford them, not yet. Survival is demanded in every movement, every breath. The smell is stronger now, overpowering. It seeps into your senses and makes you want to retch, but you remain. You have to remain. If you flee, you leave others to die alone. If you stay, you survive, but only by embracing the full horror of this place. You notice Elswith moving among the living, whispering directions, handing water, adjusting blankets. She glances at you briefly. Her expression is unreadable, but her eyes communicate a truth you already know. Fear is a luxury. Action is survival. Father Oswin kneels, murmuring a prayer for old Ragna. His hands shake slightly as he folds them. You realize that even the strongest cannot remain untouched. He prays not for miracles, but for courage for all of you. You feel the heat creeping up your neck, the telltale aches, the faint swelling in your armpit. It is a warning, a whisper that the plague does not discriminate. The room shifts slightly as another cough erupts from Joran, violent and rattling, like an animal caught in a trap. In that moment, you understand a bitter truth. The plague is patient, relentless, and meticulous. It moves quietly at first, then all at once. There is no escape, no hiding. Only endurance, discipline, and careful attention. The smell of death will not leave you. The fear will not leave you. But as long as you act, as long as you care, as long as you breathe, you can survive. Night descends like a heavy shroud, and with it comes a new kind of fear, the kind that moves quietly, creeping between the shadows. The brazier glows dimly, casting long, flickering shadows on the walls. Every corner of the quarantine house seems alive, filled with the small, restless movements of the sick and dying. You sit on your pallet, knees drawn up, listening. The coughs are louder now, harsher, echoing through the room with each labored breath. Tomas shifts uneasily beside you, muttering under his breath, counting the intervals between groans as though that could somehow predict death. Your mother's hand rests lightly on yours, grounding you. "You must watch," she whispers. "Even in sleep, even in dreams. Someone must always be alert." You nod, though the weight of exhaustion presses down on your limbs. Fatigue bites into every joint, every muscle. You have not truly slept since the morning Edric died. And yet you do not allow yourself to drift entirely. There is too much at stake. The plague does not forgive negligence. Aldred moves among the sleepers, whispering instructions, repositioning blankets, checking fevers. His face is pale, shadowed by the glow of the embers. The blacksmith's hands are rough, but they move with careful precision, measured touches born of necessity. You notice Elswith at the far side of the room, keeping vigil over Joran. His body writhes beneath the blanket, each cough shaking him violently. She mutters soothing words, but they are quieter than the groans, softer than the rasping breaths. Her eyes flick toward you for a brief moment, a silent question. "Can you bear this night?" You do not answer. You can only nod slightly. The truth is, there is no one to comfort you here. Comfort is a luxury for those not bound by the same walls, not trapped by the same smell of decay, not listening to the same unrelenting chorus of suffering. Suddenly, the sound of someone moving stirs the room. You hold your breath. The shadows shift. A small, weak cough echoes from the corner where you have set old Ragna's body. Nothing else seems disturbed. Perhaps it is the wind through the shutters, perhaps your imagination, perhaps not. Father Oswin kneels in the center of the room, whispering prayers over each person in turn, over the living and the dead alike. His words are a rhythm, a pulse of humanity in a house that threatens to strip it all away. You watch the smoke of the brazier rise in thin streams, curling toward the ceiling, mixing with the scent of herbs, sweat, and something fouler, decay. You think about Edric, about Ragna, about the others who have already fallen. The tally grows silently in your mind. It is not a number. It is a weight. Each life lost drags you down further into exhaustion, into fear. But there is also a spark, fragile, almost imperceptible, that keeps you moving, keeps you alert. That spark is survival, human and stubborn. The night stretches endlessly. You notice subtle changes in the living, a shiver here, a rattle in the throat there. The plague is patient. It moves with intent, watching and waiting. And yet in the darkest hours, small gestures matter. Elswith adjusting Joran's blanket, Tomas offering a cup of water at arm's length, your mother holding your hand. These are acts of quiet courage, the only weapons you have against despair. You remember Aldred's words from earlier, we survive by order, not chaos. The house is chaos incarnate, yet within it, the rules you have set, distance, careful tending, vigilance, are what separate life from death. Hours pass. The shadows lengthen and shrink with the weak light. Every small sound seems amplified, a cough, a moan, a shift of straw. You feel the tension in your shoulders, the ache in your back, the heat in your cheeks. Yet you remain alert, eyes scanning, ears straining. A soft whisper reaches you, your mother, murmuring a prayer for the dead and the living alike. It is a thread of continuity, a tether to humanity. You repeat the words silently, and for a moment the terror recedes just enough for you to breathe. But it will not last. The night is long. The plague is patient. And every shadow hides another whisper, another threat, another life dangling on the edge. You understand now fully. The house does not merely hold the sick. It holds fear itself, distills it, and makes you face it with every breath, every movement, every heartbeat. And yet in this suffocating darkness, you remain awake, watching, waiting, refusing to surrender. Dawn creeps in gray and hesitant, barely lighting the edges of the boarded windows. The room smells worse than before. The coppery tang of blood and the acrid, sickly scent of sweat have deepened with decay. It clings to every surface, to your clothes, to your hair, and even the faint smoke from the brazier cannot mask it. You awaken with a tightness in your chest, a heaviness that pulls at your limbs. Every muscle aches as though exhaustion alone could kill you. Yet you must rise, must move among the pallets. The plague does not rest. Neither can you. Joran is the first to call out, his voice a wet rasp. His fever has surged overnight, and the swellings along his armpits are blackened, inflamed. His breaths come in short, shuddering gasps. Elswith is at his side, her hands pressed against his chest, guiding his shallow breaths. You see the lines of fatigue etched deeply into her face, the tremor in her fingers. She has been awake all night, tending, watching, calculating. Tomas moves from pallet to pallet, carrying small bowls of water, whispering directions. His movements are precise, cautious. Even love must be measured here. The slightest misstep could mean contamination. His eyes meet yours briefly. Silent acknowledgement passes between you. Survival is work, and work is now all that matters. Father Oswin kneels by Joran, murmuring prayers that float over the fevered room. His voice is a constant hum in the background, a tether to humanity. You notice his shoulders shake slightly, though he does not pause. He prays for courage, for endurance, for mercy, for all of you trapped within these walls. Aldred paces, restless, hands clenched at his sides. He mutters under his breath a low string of curses and fears. You have come to understand him. He is fear dressed in muscle and anger, trying to mask terror with movement. He checks every pallet, every blanket, every body, alive or dead, with meticulous care, as if the act of watching can stave off the inevitable. Then you feel it, the fever. A subtle warmth behind your shoulder, a slight swelling in your armpit, the faint dizziness creeping at the edge of your vision. You pause, heart thudding, breath shallow. The plague whispers in your body, and you recognize the signs too well. Your mother notices immediately. Stay calm, she whispers. Her hand rests on yours, grounding you. Measure your breath, do not give it power. You nod, trying to internalize the words. Panic is the enemy here more than the fever itself. Your pulse races. The room seems to shrink around you, every cough amplified, every groan sharper, more jagged. Old Ragna's pallet is empty, her body moved to the far corner hours ago. The smell lingers, you cannot forget it. It clings to your nose, your throat, your mind. You turn to see the others, noting their own subtle signs, flushed cheeks, twitching hands, labored breaths. The plague does not strike only once. It spreads quietly, infecting first the body, then the room, then the mind. Aldred notices your pause. He crosses quickly, voice low but firm. If you are taken, you cannot let fear dominate. Move, drink water, breathe slowly, stay present. You do. You follow his instructions. Your mother's hand in yours, Elswith at Joran's side, Father Oswin praying, all reminders that humanity can persist even in the suffocating presence of death. The day stretches ahead, a continuous cycle of watching, tending, whispering. Every cough, every rattle, every tremor is a reminder of your own fragility. But you endure, you carry water, you guide fevered limbs, you whisper prayers of your own. Each action is a battle against despair, each measured gesture a tiny rebellion against the disease. By afternoon, you realize that the fever is not merely physical. It is psychological, a constant weight pressing on your mind. It makes the shadows longer, the air heavier, the smells sharper. It amplifies fear, distorts perception, steals energy. Yet within this terror, a thin line of defiance persists. You cling to it even as it frays with each groan, each cough, each lifeless body. Survival is no longer hope or faith alone. It is discipline, calculation, courage, and presence. Every breath you take, every movement you make is a choice to endure. And as the day drags on, you understand fully, the plague is patient, but so too is human will, and it is only by clinging to it in small acts, in whispered words, in careful observation, that you have a chance to remain alive. The late afternoon sunlight filters weakly through the cracks of the quarantine house shutters, casting long, trembling lines across the straw-strewn floor. The shadows are restless, shifting with the faint flicker of the brazier. Each movement is amplified in the oppressive silence, every cough a jolt that cuts through the weary stillness. Joran's fever has worsened. His skin now bears the splotches of deep purple, his breath short and rattling. Elswith remains at his side, arms aching from constant care, her eyes red but unwavering. You can see Aldred moving among the others, his steps purposeful, shoulders tense. The quiet rhythm of survival continues, but the inevitability of death presses closer with each passing hour. Father Oswin rises, his face drawn and pale, his hands folded in prayer. "It is time," he says quietly. His gaze meets yours, heavy with unspoken weight. "Another must leave us," you know without asking. Old Ragna's body must be prepared for burial. The room is silent as the three of you gather around her. Even in death, the plague refuses simplicity. The smell is sharp, undeniable, clinging to her clothing, the blanket, and the straw beneath her. Aldred moves first, lifting her legs gently while Father Oswin slides his hands beneath her shoulders. You assist where you can, feeling the weight of her body, impossibly light yet unrelentingly present. The act feels ceremonial, intimate, but also terrifying. One misstep, one touch too careless, and the contagion could reach you. You cover her with a clean sheet, tucking the corners with meticulous care. Every gesture is deliberate. There is no room for error. The room seems to hold its breath with you, the embers from the brazier glowing faintly, shadows playing across the walls, whispering of the fragility of life. Outside, the courtyard waits. A shallow trench has been dug, the earth dry and stubborn beneath the thin layer of winter frost. It is a stark, unadorned grave, no ceremony beyond what can be managed within the constraints of quarantine. Survival dictates austerity, even in farewell. The procession is slow, careful. You carry old Ragna's body with Aldred and Father Oswin, her weight pressing upon your shoulders in a way that feels like the weight of the world itself. The others remain inside, watching from behind the barricades, their faces pale and haunted. Each step is measured, deliberate, the wind carrying a faint chill that bites through the thin layers of clothing. You reach the grave. The trench yawns, empty and unwelcoming. Father Oswin speaks, voice quiet, deliberate, offering prayers for the soul departed and for those who remain. You lower old Ragna gently, hands shaking, the earth cold beneath her, the wind whispering over her still form. Aldred covers her with soil, each handful heavy, final, each motion echoing in the hollow silence. You help, feeling the grit cling to your palms, your sleeves, your skin. The act is grounding, a tether to the living amidst the relentless presence of death. When it is done, Father Oswin bows his head. "May God receive her," he whispers. No more words are needed. The ground is now her resting place. The plague has taken one more, but the living endure. As you turn back to the quarantine house, the wind carries the faint metallic tang of blood and earth. You feel the ache in your arms, the tightness in your chest, the dull throb of exhaustion. And yet the resolve remains. Life continues, fragile and trembling, but alive. Back inside, the room feels smaller, heavier. The loss is palpable, but it is tempered by the rhythm of survival. The sick still need care. The fevered still need water. Each breath, each measured step is a defiance of the plague itself. Joran coughs violently, shaking against Elswith's steady hands. Aldred adjusts a blanket. Father Oswin murmurs prayers. And you, still trembling from the weight of carrying a body into the earth, return to the cycle, knowing that tomorrow will bring more of the same, more suffering, more choices between fear and action, despair and determination. In the quarantine house, death is constant. But life, fragile, fleeting, and stubborn, persists in the hands of those willing to endure it. And you are among them. The night falls again, heavier than before, as if the air itself has learned to weigh upon your chest. The brazier's flame flickers, casting long, trembling shadows that crawl along the walls. Each shadow seems alive, stretching and shrinking with the sighs and moans of the fevered. You sit on your pallet, knees drawn close, listening. The coughs have multiplied overnight. Every rasping breath cuts through the room like steel. The plague is patient, relentless, and it waits, always waiting. Your mother's hand rests on yours, grounding you, a reminder that survival is shared, not solitary. Aldred moves like a shadow, his steps quiet but deliberate. He checks on each patient, lifts blankets, delivers water, murmurs instructions. You notice his jaw tight, the twitch of his fingers. Fear and exhaustion are etched into every line of his face, yet he persists. His vigilance is a shield for the others, a testament to human resilience. Elswith sits beside Joran, who shivers violently beneath the blankets. His fever rages, skin flushed and blotched, eyes wild with delirium. She murmurs to him constantly, her hands steady despite her exhaustion. You watch her for a moment, realizing that courage in this house is not loud or heroic. It is measured, persistent, small gestures repeated again and again. Father Oswin kneels in the center, prayers flowing softly from his lips. Not loud, not demanding, only steady. His voice is a tether, a rhythm amidst the chaos, a reminder that even here some form of humanity can endure. You hear the whispers first, faint, almost imperceptible. They come from the corner of the room where the dead are laid, covered with blankets. At first you think it is the wind, the creak of wooden walls. Then the whispers grow, distinct, chilling. Names, fragments of sentences, murmured prayers, cries too quiet to identify fully. Old Ragnar's spot seems to hum with them. Even Edric's place in the far corner carries a faint resonance, a reminder of the lives that have already slipped through these walls. The whispers brush against your ears, a cold pressure that makes the hair on your neck stand. Tomas notices it too. He freezes, eyes wide, listening. "Do you hear them?" he whispers. You nod, swallowing hard. They are gone, but not gone, not yet." The room holds its breath. Every living soul in the house listens, straining to interpret the murmurs. Fear is alive here, moving in circles, whispering threats to every ear that will hear. The plague has left more than bodies behind. It leaves stories, echoes, remnants of life and pain. Joran shivers violently, breaking the trance of the whispers. Elswith adjusts his blanket, whispering words of calm, of grounding. Aldred shakes his head as if to dispel a phantom. Father Oswin continues his prayers, a steady rhythm that steadies the room. You close your eyes, focusing on your breathing. 1, 2, 3. The whispers are still there, but they are now background, part of the rhythm of this place. They remind you of the stakes, the fragility of life, and the thin thread by which you cling to it. The night stretches long. Every small sound, a cough, a shuffle, a moan, carries weight. Every shadow seems to hold a story, a warning, a ghost. You feel the fever stirring in your own body, a heat at the back of your neck, a tightness in your chest. It is a whisper of mortality, a reminder that the plague does not choose lightly. Yet you remain. You adjust a blanket, pour water from a bowl held at arm's length, murmur a quiet prayer. The acts are small, but they are defiance. They are proof that even in the shadow of death, human will persists. By the time the first pale gray of dawn seeps through the shutters, the whispers have faded slightly. They will return tonight and the night after until the plague releases its grip, but you are still here. Awake, alert, enduring. In this house, in this night, you learn that survival is not measured in absence of death. It is measured in persistence, in vigilance, in courage repeated quietly, relentlessly, in every breath, every motion, every whispered word. The morning light is a pale promise, weakly spilling through the shutters. Outside, the town is silent, blanketed in the hush of fear, but inside the quarantine house, life continues its fragile rhythm. The smell of decay remains, thick and persistent, but it is tempered slightly by the smoke of herbs and the faint warmth of the brazier. You rise, muscles stiff and aching, carrying the weight of the previous nights in every joint. Fatigue gnaws at you, but there is work to be done. Survival demands attention. Every motion is careful, lifting blankets, offering water, speaking quietly. Each action is deliberate, measured against the ever-present threat of contagion. Joran lies on his pallet, drenched in sweat, breathing shallow and rapid. Elswith never leaves his side. Her hands are raw from constant care, her face a mask of exhaustion, yet determination shines through. You notice her shoulders slump briefly, only to straighten again as she guides his labored breaths. Courage here is quiet, repetitive, physical. Aldred moves among the others, silent but vigilant. He checks the pallor of skin, the heat of fevered cheeks, the subtle shifts in the straw beneath each body. Each patient is a calculation, each movement a risk, each breath a reminder that survival is tenuous. Your mother speaks softly, guiding you through tasks, pouring water, monitoring fevers, adjusting blankets. Her calm steadiness is a tether, a reminder that courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. You nod, repeating every gesture, absorbing her discipline, learning to act even when dread threatens to paralyze. Suddenly, a change. A faint color returns to Joran's cheeks. His breaths, while still rapid, are less ragged, less desperate. He opens his eyes briefly, looking at Elswith with a glimmer of recognition. It is small, almost imperceptible, but it is enough. "Look," you whisper to your mother, pointing. She nods, eyes softening, a rare expression of hope breaking the tension. Even Father Oswin allows himself a small smile, though he continues his prayers. The body fights sometimes, he murmurs. The soul endures sometimes. This is one of those rare moments. Aldred pauses by Joran, checking his pulse. The lines of tension in his face ease slightly. He mutters a word of encouragement, careful to keep it measured, protective. Steady, keep steady, he says, a rhythm that seems to echo through the room, grounding the others. You sense it too, a fragile thread connecting all of you, a recognition that survival is not just in isolation, but in collective care. Each act, however small, contributes to the preservation of life. The quiet gestures, adjusting a blanket, offering a cup of water, a whispered word, are tiny victories against the relentless tide of disease. Tomas, standing near the doorway, glances at you and nods. His expression is a mixture of relief and cautious optimism. Even he allows himself a moment to exhale. For now, one life has been spared. The day unfolds slowly, measured by tasks rather than hours. Water is offered, blankets are adjusted, the fevered are tended. The room is still heavy with the scent of sickness, but there is a subtle shift, a weight lifted, however slightly, by the flicker of hope. You take a brief moment to rest, leaning against the wall. Your mother's hand presses lightly to your shoulder. See, she whispers, even here, even now, life asserts itself. The brazier glows warmly, casting flickering shadows. Outside, the wind carries faint sounds of the silent town. Inside, the rhythm continues, but now, beneath the terror and decay, there is a whisper of possibility. It is small, tenuous, and easily snuffed out, but it exists. Hope is fragile, more fragile than the straw beneath your feet, more fragile than the bodies you tend. And yet it endures. And in this endurance you find a new kind of strength, not the arrogance of invincibility, but the humility of perseverance, the courage of simply holding on. The plague waits. It is patient, relentless, impartial. But in the flicker of a fevered child's recovery, you understand something vital. Humanity, even in its smallest gestures, will resist. And that resistance, however fleeting, is a victory. The afternoon grows heavy with stillness. Even the faint sunlight filtering through the cracks in the shutters seems reluctant, weak, as though it fears what it illuminates. The house is quieter now, but not peaceful. Silence is dangerous here. It magnifies every breath, every cough, every subtle shift in the straw-covered floor. You notice Tomas glancing nervously at the corner where the dead are laid. His face is pale, lips pressed thin, eyes darting. He mutters something under his breath, words swallowed by the tense air. Fear has a shape here, and suspicion is its twin. Even among the living, trust is a fragile thread, easily snapped by panic. Aldred moves with a restless intensity, checking each patient again. He is meticulous, but the pressure shows in the twitch of his jaw, the slight tremor in his hands. "Did anyone touch the blankets?" he asks suddenly, voice low but firm. The question hangs in the air, accusatory, sharp. Your mother places a calming hand on his arm. "We are all careful," she says. "No one has been reckless." But even she cannot mask the edge of fear creeping into her voice. In the quarantine house, fear is a currency, exchanged in glances, gestures, and whispered words. Joran lies on his pallet, sweat beading along his forehead, eyes half-lidded. He coughs once violently, drawing your attention. Elswith tends to him, her hands steady, but you notice a flicker of tension in her eyes. They dart toward Aldred, toward Tomas, toward anyone who might threaten the delicate order of the room. It is in this tension, this unspoken calculation, that the plague exerts its power. Not only through fever and death, but through paranoia, through the erosion of certainty, through the subtle fracture of human trust. Father Oswin kneels by the brazier, murmuring prayers, seemingly detached from the unease among the living. His eyes, however, are alert, scanning the room for the smallest disruptions. You realize that he too is a keeper of order, a guardian against chaos, not merely a priest. You glance at Tomas, who fidgets with the hem of his sleeve. The whispers of the night still linger in his mind. Did anyone hear?" he asks quietly, eyes wide. You shake your head. "Just the wind," you reply, though even you feel the unease. The subtle hierarchy of the quarantine house is clear now. Aldred commands vigilance, Elswith commands care, Father Oswin commands faith, and you are learning to command courage, to steady trembling hands, to measure each breath against panic. Even your mother, calm and methodical, radiates quiet authority. Suddenly, a loud cough cuts through the room, harsh and wet. All eyes snap toward the sound. It comes from one of the newly arrived patients, a young man shivering beneath a thin blanket. Fear ricochets through the room, palpable and immediate. The rules of care, the discipline of distance, the cautious gestures, all are tested in an instant. Aldred moves first, hand outstretched to indicate distance. Elswith follows, steadying the patient without touching him improperly. You feel your own body tense, instinctively stepping back, counting the silent steps between health and infection. The plague is both invisible and merciless, and any lapse could be catastrophic. Father Oswin begins a prayer, low and steady, creating a rhythm that steadies the room. The tension loosens slightly, but the edge remains. Suspicion is a ghost here, and every shadow is a potential threat. You notice a subtle change in yourself, a sharpened awareness, a constant assessment of movement, air, touch, and proximity. Every person is both ally and potential vector. Trust is necessary, but it must be measured, disciplined, cautious. By evening, the tension has not fully dissipated. The room is quieter, more watchful. Aldred paces with slow, deliberate steps, recalculating, reassessing. Tomas sits rigid, eyes alert, occasionally glancing at you for reassurance. Elswith continues her vigil beside Joran, her touch precise, careful. You realize that survival in this house is not just a battle against the plague. It is a battle against fear, against suspicion, against the slow erosion of trust. The disease does not merely strike the body, it strikes the mind, the relationships, the very cohesion that makes endurance possible. And yet, despite the shadows, despite the whispers, despite the tension, you remain, you act, you observe, you persist. In this house of death, you are learning that vigilance is survival, and that courage is often measured in the restraint of panic, the careful choice of trust, and the endurance of uncertainty. Night falls with a heavy, suffocating weight. The quarantine house is quiet now, almost eerily so, the kind of quiet that stretches taut and makes every small sound, every cough, every shiver, every scrape of straw, ring with alarming clarity. Shadows from the brazier flicker and stretch across the walls, twisting the shapes of the sick and the dying into something monstrous. You sit on your pallet, chest tight, muscles aching from the day's labor. Your eyes roam the room. Some are asleep, though shallowly, some are too weak even to move. Others lie in silence, staring at the ceiling as if watching the plague itself pass through the house. The weight of vigilance presses down on you. Then you hear it, a faint scuffing at the far door. Your heart jerks violently, panic flaring in your chest. Tomas shifts to a low hiss escaping his lips. The sound comes again, almost inaudible, but distinct enough to trigger the tension coiled in your spine. Someone or something is moving outside. Aldred rises silently, his eyes narrowing. Hand on the hilt of his dagger, not for combat, but for authority, he steps toward the door. You follow instinctively, muscles coiled for action, aware of every breath, every sound. The plague is not the only danger. The living can be just as unpredictable. Through the small gap in the shutter, you see a figure crouched in the courtyard, moving with deliberate care. Moonlight glints faintly off their cloak. They pause as if listening. A soft, muffled voice calls out, "Please, anyone awake?" It is a voice too weak to be threatening, too hesitant to be hostile. You recognize it instantly, one of the villagers who had been turned away during the initial quarantine. They have returned, desperate, possibly infected, certainly terrified. Aldred's jaw tightens. "Stay back," he whispers. "We cannot afford—" His voice trails off, the implications too heavy to say aloud. The risk is enormous. One wrong move could undo everything you have struggled to maintain. Your mother steps forward, calm but firm. "They need help," she says. "We cannot leave them outside." Her words are measured, steady, carrying authority that even Aldred cannot dismiss. You nod silently, the familiar tug of human compassion overriding fear. Together you move cautiously to the doorway. The figure in the courtyard flinches at the light, eyes wide, body trembling. They are fevered, thin, and trembling, not unlike many within your own walls. You step forward, extending a hand. "Come in slowly," you whisper. The figure complies, every movement careful, deliberate. Aldred watches closely, ready to intervene, but the tension in the room eases slightly. The plague will not grant mercy, but you will not refuse it either. Inside, the newcomer leans heavily against the wall, trembling. The smell of sickness clings to them already. You feel the weight of responsibility pressed down once more. Every motion, every gesture must be precise. Water is offered, blankets adjusted, distance measured. Every action is a calculation, every breath a negotiation with death. Father Oswin steps forward, murmuring prayers, a rhythm of steadiness in the chaos. Elswith watches Joran, then glances at you and the newcomer, her expression taut with concentration. You notice Aldred's shoulders finally relax slightly, though his eyes never stop scanning, alert, vigilant. You realize the pattern of survival here: patience, calculation, courage, and compassion. The plague does not pause, but neither can humanity. Every decision matters, every risk carries weight, every act of care is a defiance against the relentless darkness. By midnight, the new arrival has been settled on a pallet, isolated enough to reduce risk but close enough to be tended. The house is heavier but alive. The shadows still twist across walls, the coughs still pierce the darkness, and the weight of fear persists. Yet in that small act, the silent rescue, the careful inclusion, you feel something like triumph. Not victory over the plague, not certainty of survival, but the fragile, flickering persistence of human kindness. In the quarantine house, the plague demands everything. And yet in these quiet, deliberate choices, you see that even amid relentless death, humanity finds ways to endure. Morning breaks over the quarantine house, pale and hesitant, brushing the walls with weak light. Inside, the air is thick, damp with sweat, smoke, and the acrid tang of decay. The brazier sputters, casting trembling shadows that sway across the pallets and walls like ghostly warnings. The new arrival from last night lies curled under a thin blanket, trembling. You pour a small bowl of water and offer it, hands steady but careful. They drink hesitantly, eyes wide with fear, and you feel the weight of responsibility pressing down again. Each gesture is a delicate negotiation, every motion measured to minimize risk. Joran is awake, fever still raging but slightly less violent than yesterday. Elswith tends him quietly, guiding his labored breaths. You notice a subtle line of hope in her expression, quickly masked by exhaustion. Life persists in fragile increments, and the smallest improvements feel monumental. Aldred paces the room, eyes sharp, shoulders tense. Something has shifted. The quiet unease that had been simmering overnight now pulses visibly in the house. A soft thump echoes from the far corner. You freeze, listening. Another sound follows, thump, thump, then silence. Father Oswin glances up from his prayers. "It is time," he murmurs, voice low but steady. You know what he means. The plague claims another. Old Tomas, the skilled but frail caregiver, has been struck. You glance toward his pallet, the faint twitch of a hand betraying the fever already consuming him. Elswith and Aldred move quickly, though carefully, as Father Oswin whispers prayers over Tomas. You help adjust the blankets, feel the weakness in his frame, and notice the subtle shift in the room. The rhythm of routine, feeding, tending, cleaning, watching has been fractured. Every loss tears the fabric of order, leaving a palpable tension. Your mother steps forward, voice calm but resolute. "We adapt. We must." Her words carry authority that steadies the room, reminding everyone that survival is not passive. Even as the plague strips away numbers and energy, it cannot strip away careful vigilance. You feel it in yourself, the subtle tightening of muscles, the quickened heartbeat, the sharpened awareness of every movement in the room. Fear is constant, but it is disciplined, harnessed toward survival. The plague has taught you that terror can be a tool if it is restrained, measured, and transformed into action. The day stretches, slow and relentless. You offer water, adjust blankets, monitor fevers, whisper prayers alongside Father Oswin. Aldred inspects each pallet, noting subtle changes in color, heat, and movement. Elswith remains at Joran's side, whispering, guiding, steadying. Even in chaos, patterns of care emerge, rituals that anchor the fragile stability of life. Then a subtle but sharp cough erupts from the new arrival. You freeze. Aldred moves first, assessing. You and your mother step closer, careful, maintaining distance but ready to act. The delicate balance of inclusion and isolation teeters. One misstep could undo hours of vigilance. Yet the newcomer survives the fever, swallowing water, shivering but alive. A flicker of relief passes through the room, small and fleeting but vital. Every act of care, every whispered instruction, every measured step has been a defense against collapse. By evening, the house feels heavier, older. The brazier glows dimly, shadows stretching further, morphing into shapes that mimic fear itself. The routine is shattered, yes, but not broken. You, Aldred, Elswith, your mother, and Father Oswin have adapted, weaving survival into the disrupted rhythm of the house. Even in loss, the human will persist. Even as the plague devours body and spirit, discipline, courage, and care endure. Every act, small or large, becomes a rebellion against death. Every breath, every measured step is a declaration. Life, however fragile, will persist. And in the quiet moments when the coughing and groaning recede briefly, you realize that survival is not a return to normalcy. It is an ongoing negotiation with mortality, a careful choreography of presence, vigilance, and courage. The house may be shattered, but it is still alive. Night descends with a suffocating heaviness. The quarantine house seems to breathe along with its inhabitants, walls creaking under the weight of fear, groaning with the presence of the sick, and shivering in the cold draft sneaking through cracked shutters. Every shadow feels alive, every flicker of brazier light a pulse in the chest of the house itself. You sit by the doorway, watching the new arrival who sleeps fitfully, tossing under the thin blanket. Their shallow breaths punctuate the silence with a fragile rhythm. You notice your own chest tightening, matching their cadence, a subtle bond formed through the shared struggle of endurance. Joran coughs, a sharp, wet sound that rips through the quiet. Elswith adjusts his blanket, murmuring softly, a lullaby of presence and care. The sound of his breaths, the uneven rise and fall of his chest, dominates the room. Every exhale reminds you of fragility, every inhale of victory in itself. Aldred walks slowly among the pallets, his shadow stretching across walls that seem to pulse like the surface of a living organism. His eyes catch the slightest movements, every shiver, every twitch, every bead of sweat glinting under the brazier's glow. The house is alive, but it is a cruel sentinel, amplifying both life and decay. Father Oswin kneels near the corner where old Ragna was laid, murmuring prayers into the flickering darkness. Whispers of the departed seem to linger here, faint and persistent, brushing against your ears with icy fingers. Each whispered name, each fragment of a life lost, resonates against the walls. You shiver not from cold, but from the weight of memory and mortality. Your mother moves quietly, tending to the new arrival, checking for fever, adjusting blankets, offering small cups of water. Every gesture is deliberate, precise. Even the smallest action carries risk, yet she proceeds without hesitation. Watching her, you realize that survival is measured not in heroic acts, but in repeated, careful gestures over and over until instinct and skill converge. Suddenly, a cough echoes from the far corner. Tomas, still weak from his fever, struggles against the disease's grip. Aldred steps immediately, steadying him while Father Oswin murmurs prayers. The walls seem to lean inward, pressing the weight of expectation and fear upon you all. Every movement must be measured, every breath controlled, every touch calculated. You notice the house itself seems to participate in the rhythm of survival. The floorboards creak in protest, responding to every careful step. The roof groans with each gust of wind, whispering of storms to come. The flicker of the brazier's light casts shifting shadows, making every figure in the room appear twice, thrice, as if multiplied by the pressure of fear. You move to Joran's side, steadying his head against a small pillow, brushing damp hair from his brow. He coughs again, weak but less violent than before. His breaths are slow, steadying, and you feel a small, fragile flicker of relief. It is not victory, far from it, but it is something. A thread of hope in a night dominated by shadow. The whispers from the corner grow faint, almost imperceptible now, but they remain. They are not threats, not exactly, but reminders of lives lost, of choices made, of the constant tension between care and despair. You listen, let them flow past, and focus instead on the rhythm of the living, breaths, coughs, movements, quiet murmurs. By midnight, the house has settled into a tense equilibrium. Shadows cling to walls, brazier light flickers, and the weight of vigilance presses on every shoulder. Yet within this oppressive darkness, life persists. The sick breathe, the caretakers act, the prayers continue, and you, though exhausted and trembling, endure. In this breathing house, survival is not passive. It is vigilance, courage, and the quiet repetition of acts both small and vital. Each night teaches you something new. That fear can be managed, that hope flickers even amid decay, and that humanity, fragile and stubborn, can persist in the face of relentless mortality. The day breaks slowly, gray light seeping through the narrow shutters, casting the room in muted silver. The quarantine house feels heavier than before, the air thick with smoke from the brazier and the tang of sickness. You move among the pallets, muscles sore, mind taut with vigilance. Each movement is precise, each breath calculated, a delicate balance between care and contamination. Joran stirs beneath his blanket, eyes half-lidded. Elswith hovers, hands ready, murmuring softly. He coughs, a dry rasp, and she adjusts the blanket, checks the temperature. Each gesture is a measured act of resistance against the disease, a defiance in miniature. Aldred paces with methodical intensity, eyes scanning every pallet, every shadow, every flicker of movement. You notice the tension in his shoulders, the tight line of his jaw. Discipline here is survival, precision is protection. One mistake, one lapse of attention could unravel everything. Father Oswin kneels in the corner, murmuring prayers, but his gaze constantly sweeps the room. The rhythm of his voice steadies the others, a quiet metronome amidst chaos. His faith is not naive, it is deliberate, a tool to sustain both the sick and the caretakers. You move toward the brazier, checking the embers, stirring them carefully. The flame is small but vital, warmth and light against the oppressive weight of the house. Smoke curls in delicate streams, carrying with it the scent of burning herbs, a faint hope that some of the illness can be tempered by ritual and vigilance. Your mother moves beside you, adjusting water bowls and guiding care. Precision, she whispers, voice steady, is protection. Every act matters. You nod, absorbing the rhythm of her movements, learning the unspoken rules of survival in this place. Suddenly, a sharp cough cuts through the air. The new arrival jerks awake, shivering violently. Aldred steps immediately, hands out, adjusting distance, monitoring the air. Elswith rushes to assist, murmuring reassurance while keeping careful control of exposure. The house itself seems alive, its wooden walls and stone floors creaking under the strain of constant vigilance. Shadows twist and stretch across faces, emphasizing exhaustion and fear. You realize that every heartbeat, every exhale, every careful step is amplified in this living, breathing structure. Father Oswin's voice rises slightly in prayer, a cadence that organizes the chaos. He reminds you silently that discipline is a shield, structure a bulwark against the relentless tide of disease. The plague does not distinguish between innocence or skill. Survival depends on method, repetition, and attention to the smallest details. Aldred leans toward the new arrival, speaking quietly. "Steady yourself, breathe slow. We are here." His words are minimal, precise, a blend of instruction and reassurance. You note the small victories, a pulse slowing, a fevered tremor easing, a breath that deepens. The day stretches on in repetitive cycles, checking temperatures, adjusting blankets, offering water, observing shadows. Each act is deliberate, protective, and necessary. In the oppressive atmosphere of the house, discipline is more than survival. It is defiance against despair, a tangible resistance to the encroaching threat of death. By nightfall, exhaustion is nearly unbearable. You collapse against the wall for a moment, letting your body rest while your eyes remain open, alert. Shadows dance across the walls, and the flickering brazier light catches the sheen of sweat on a fevered cheek. The house is alive, breathing alongside you, its heartbeat in rhythm with vigilance and discipline. In the quiet moments between coughs, between prayers, between the small victories of survival, you understand the truth of endurance. It is repetitive, grueling, and invisible, but it persists. The plague may ravage the body, but discipline and vigilance protect the living, fortifying them against despair, fear, and the unseen threat lurking in every shadow. Tonight, you feel the weight of your own vigilance and the quiet triumph of care executed perfectly. The brazier burns low, shadows twist and stretch, and the house, though oppressive, stands as a testament to the human capacity for precision, courage, and relentless attention to life. The night has deepened into an oppressive black, thick enough to press against your chest. The quarantine house breathes with a rhythm all its own, a strange symphony of groans, coughs, and creaks. You move carefully along the narrow paths between pallets, aware of every whisper, every rustle, every minute detail that could signal change, life, death, or both. Tomas is restless, tossing under his blanket, eyes half open. Each shiver sends a ripple of concern through the room. You kneel beside him, gently adjusting the blanket over his thin frame. The warmth is temporary, but it offers a fragile comfort, a tiny victory against the relentless chill of sickness. Joran lies nearby, fevered but calmer than before. Elswith's hands hover over him, restless yet precise, measuring each breath, each movement. Her whispered instructions and murmured reassurances ripple through the room, soft as the wind, carrying calm into the tense atmosphere. The shadows cast by the brazier flicker and twist, creating shapes that seem almost sentient. For a moment, you imagine the walls themselves listening, whispering secrets of every life that has passed through. The house remembers. It holds the echoes of despair, the fleeting moments of triumph, and the faint imprints of those who did not survive. Your mother moves past you silently, checking water bowls, adjusting blankets, whispering to Father Oswin as he kneels in prayer. Her movements are fluid, instinctual, discipline embodied in quiet action. You follow her rhythm, absorbing the lessons embedded in repetition and careful observation. Then comes the whisper, faint and nearly inaudible. You freeze, straining to listen. Someone or something is moving in the far corner. The faint rustle of straw, the subtle shift of air. Tomas stirs again, groaning softly. The house seems alive, its heartbeat quickening in response to fear and vigilance. Aldred rises slowly, eyes narrowing. His hand hovers near the brazier, not to strike, but to illuminate, to reveal the shadow that threatens to break the fragile order. You step closer, muscles taut, sensing that the moment demands both courage and patience. The whisper comes again, clearer this time, a soft, pleading sound, the voice of someone weak and desperate. Your pulse accelerates, but you remind yourself, fear must be harnessed, not allowed to dictate action. Carefully, you move toward the sound with Aldred at your side. Through the dim flicker of brazier light, you see her, a young woman, pale and trembling, standing in the corner. Her clothes are thin, her eyes wide, fevered. She had been turned away days before, left outside as the plague claimed the village. And now she has returned, seeking refuge and perhaps life. Your mother steps forward, calm yet firm. "Bring her in," she whispers. Aldred hesitates, scanning for danger, then nods. Every movement is careful, calculated, maintaining a delicate balance between inclusion and isolation. The newcomer is weak but alive, and her presence challenges the order, testing both skill and courage. You guide her to a pallet, providing water and covering her with a clean blanket. Father Oswin murmurs prayers, steadying both the sick and the caretakers. Elswith watches her with cautious empathy, measuring every movement, every breath. The house seems to exhale collectively, a brief reprieve in the relentless tension. Even amid this fragile calm, you feel the whisper of unease threading through the room. The plague waits, invisible and patient, and the walls hold every secret, the coughs, the groans, the faint flickers of hope and fear. Each sound is a warning, each breath a calculation, each action a declaration of survival. By midnight, the new arrival sleeps fitfully, tended carefully, and watched constantly. The house is quieter but not silent. Shadows linger, creaking wood groans, and the faint scent of smoke and sickness hangs in the air. You realize that survival is a constant negotiation with both the disease and the fragile human order within these walls. And as you finally lean against the wall, chest heaving with exhaustion, you understand a truth that has become clear over endless nights. The house itself is both adversary and ally, a living presence that demands vigilance, compassion, and the quiet courage to act, even when the whispers between walls suggest despair. The morning light is reluctant, spilling pale and cold through the small cracks of the shutters. The quarantine house feels suspended in time, caught between night and day, life and death. Every breath you take seems louder than it should, echoing off the rough wooden walls, a reminder that every sound can betray the fragile equilibrium. Joran lies still, his fever somewhat tamed, yet his chest rises and falls unevenly. Elswith hovers, hands poised, ready for the next cough or tremor. You watch her, admiring her quiet precision, her ability to translate fear into action. The house, with its constant creaks and whispers, has become a school of vigilance, teaching patience through repetition and careful observation. Aldred moves among the pallets like a shadow, his eyes sharp, scanning, calculating. Every movement is deliberate, a rhythm honed over countless days. His presence is a reminder. Survival is not a matter of luck, but of constant awareness and disciplined care. Father Oswin kneels in a corner, whispering prayers, his voice steady and measured. Even he cannot stop the undercurrent of tension, but his presence gives structure, a rhythm to counter the chaos. You notice how the sick respond to him, how the caretakers align themselves with his cadence, creating a fragile harmony in the house's oppressive atmosphere. Suddenly, a sharp cough rips through the room. The new arrival stirs violently, sweat beading on her pale forehead. You spring into action, adjusting her blanket, offering water, guiding her breathing. Aldred steps in, maintaining distance, monitoring every movement, ensuring that no contagion spreads. The air is thick with tension, heavy with the smell of sickness and smoke. The walls seem to lean inward, concentrating every sound and movement, every heartbeat and breath. You realize that the house itself is an active participant, pressing upon everyone within, shaping every choice, every motion, every pause. Your mother approaches you, her hands steady, her voice calm. Focus. Every act matters. You nod, aware that in this house, survival is a mosaic of small, deliberate actions, each one reinforcing the fragile structure of life. Hours pass in repetitive cycles, checking temperatures, adjusting blankets, offering water, observing shadows. Each action is both routine and critical, a bulwark against despair. Even the smallest oversight could unravel the fragile threads holding the house together. The brazier flickers low, casting elongated shadows that seem to breathe alongside you. Every cough, every moan, every shuffle of straw is amplified, each one a signal, a potential warning. You move carefully among the pallets, counting your steps, measuring distance, calculating every motion. Fear is constant, but it is disciplined, harnessed to vigilance. By evening, exhaustion is nearly overwhelming. The house is quieter now, but the silence is deceptive. Every shadow, every flicker of movement carries weight. The plague waits patiently, unseen, relentless, and you feel the tension like a cord wrapped around your chest. Yet even amid this suffocating stillness, small victories shine. A patient's fever eases, a cough softens, a hand rests lightly on a trembling shoulder. Every small act of care, every measured gesture becomes a declaration of persistence, a quiet triumph against despair. You lean against the wall for a brief moment, feeling the pulse of the house, the rhythm of breaths and murmurs, the delicate interplay between life and death. It is here at the edge of silence that you understand the true measure of endurance, not in grand acts, not in heroics, but in repeated, careful, precise action, sustained day after day, moment by moment. In this house of shadows and whispers, survival is both a practice and an art. It is measured in breaths, in steps, in the patient execution of care. And despite the fear, despite the constant presence of death, humanity persists, fragile but unbroken, finding ways to endure in the edge of silence. Night settles over the quarantine house like a thick, suffocating blanket. The brazier's glow casts flickering shadows that crawl across the walls, elongating faces, limbs, and the very objects of care into strange, ghostly forms. Every cough, every groan, every faint rustle of straw feels amplified, as if the house itself listens and reacts. You patrol the narrow aisles between pallets, senses straining, body taut with anticipation. The new arrival sleeps fitfully, chest heaving, skin damp with sweat. Joran stirs, coughing softly, and Elswith leans over him, whispering a careful cadence of reassurance while adjusting the blanket. The rhythm of care is as delicate and precise as any ritual. Aldred stands near the doorway, arms crossed, eyes sharp. He scans the room with practiced vigilance, the weight of responsibility pressing down on every line of his face. You know he is constantly calculating distance, airflow, potential risks, subtle changes in color or movement. Here in this house, even small errors can have grave consequences. Father Oswin kneels at the corner, murmuring prayers for both the living and the dead. The cadence of his voice creates an undercurrent of rhythm and stability, a tether to sanity amidst the oppressive tension. You notice how even the sick respond to him, subconsciously syncing their breaths to his measured murmur. Suddenly, a coughing fit erupts from the new arrival. You spring into action, hands precise, controlled, offering water, adjusting blankets, keeping a careful distance. Aldred observes, ready to intervene, his gaze scanning every motion. The house seems to contract around you, emphasizing each heartbeat, each movement, each fragile thread of life. Your mother glides through the room, calm and deliberate. "Steady," she whispers. "Every motion matters." Her voice is not a suggestion, but a command rooted in experience and necessity. You follow instinctively, reinforcing the invisible framework of discipline and care that holds the house together. Hours stretch, marked only by subtle shifts. The ebb and flow of fevers, the shallow breaths of the patients, the soft mutterings of the priest. Shadows dance and merge across walls, suggesting presence where there is none, amplifying the tension that never fully dissipates. The house is alive, but it is a cruel sentinel, reminding you constantly of vulnerability and fragility. A faint shuffle reaches your ears. You tense, listening. Every movement, even a whisper, could signal life or danger. The new arrival stirs, shifting under the blanket, and you realize the house is teaching vigilance in its own way. No sound is insignificant, no gesture unnoticed, no breath unimportant. By midnight, the house has settled into a tense equilibrium. The patients are breathing more steadily, fevers easing slightly, shadows stretching across walls in quiet observance. You stand, leaning briefly against the rough timber of a post, letting the rhythm of the house seep into your bones. The lesson is clear. Survival is not heroic or dramatic. It is the repeated, careful execution of small, precise actions under relentless pressure. Every gesture, adjusting a blanket, offering a sip of water, monitoring a pulse, is both armor and defiance, a quiet declaration against despair and death. Even as the house creaks and groans, its walls alive with shadows and whispers, humanity endures. The sick breathe, the caretakers act, the priest murmurs prayers. In this continuous, shadowed vigil, life is fragile yet persistent. The house has become both adversary and ally, a living reminder that endurance is measured not in strength or bravery alone, but in careful, repeated, deliberate action sustained through fear and darkness alike. And as you finally take a moment to sit, exhausted yet alert, you understand. The shadowed vigil is unending. The house teaches patience, vigilance, and courage. In every flicker of light, every breath, every movement, survival whispers back, persistent and unwavering. Dawn creeps reluctantly over the horizon, pale and washed out, seeping through the narrow cracks of the shutters. The quarantine house is quiet but not at peace. Shadows cling stubbornly to corners, and the faint smell of smoke, sweat, and sickness lingers, heavy and unyielding. Every sound seems magnified. The groan of the floorboards, the whisper of fabric as a blanket is adjusted, the soft coughs that punctuate the silence. You move among the pallets, body tense, mind alert. Tomas stirs, weak but alive, sweat matting his hair to his forehead. The new arrival breathes shallowly beside him, pale and trembling. Joran's chest rises and falls with a gentler rhythm than before, and Elswith leans over him, murmuring reassurance that seems almost ritualistic in its repetition. Each small act, the offering of water, the adjustment of blankets, the whispered guidance, becomes a crucial thread in the fragile circle of survival. Aldred paces methodically, eyes scanning, calculating, measuring. Every movement he makes is deliberate, a study in control and precision. One misstep could unravel the delicate balance, exposing the living to unseen dangers. The house itself seems to recognize the fragility of this circle, groaning and creaking, responding to the tension like a living being, its very structure a sentinel for life and death. Father Oswin kneels in a corner, chanting softly, his voice a tether to stability. The rhythm of his prayers seems to synchronize the room, a counterpoint to the chaos of sickness. You notice how even the patients, though weak and fevered, seem to align with his cadence, as if each murmured word anchors them against the tide of disease. Your mother moves among the patients, hands precise, movements calm but deliberate. "Every gesture counts," she whispers. Her words are simple, yet heavy with experience. In this house, survival is composed not of grand heroics, but of endless, meticulous repetition, of touch, observation, and unyielding attention to the smallest details. Suddenly, a violent cough shatters the stillness. The new arrival jerks, sweat beading her skin, eyes wide with fear. You spring into action, adjusting blankets, offering water, monitoring her breathing. Aldred mirrors your motions, ensuring every precaution is observed. The house seems to pulse with the intensity of your care, a living entity measuring every heartbeat and exhale. Hours stretch on, marked by repetitive cycles. The rise and fall of fevers, the monitoring of pulse, the careful administration of water and warmth. Shadows shift across walls cast by the flickering brazier. The house itself feels alive, its presence almost sentient, observing, reacting to every movement, every breath. By evening, the fragile circle is held. No lives are lost today, and small victories shimmer quietly. A patient's fever eases, a cough softens, a hand rests lightly on a trembling shoulder. These small triumphs are monumental here, each one reinforcing the structure of care, each one a defiance against the invisible enemy that waits beyond the walls. You lean against a wooden post, muscles aching, chest tight with exhaustion, but your eyes remain alert. The house creaks around you, shadows twisting and stretching, a reminder that the fight is ongoing, relentless, unyielding. You understand that survival is measured in repetition, precision, and presence. The repeated acts of care, the unbroken attention, the quiet courage to act when every instinct screams to flee. The fragile circle persists, tenuous yet unbroken. The sick breathe, the caretakers move with precision, the priest murmurs prayers, and you, though exhausted and trembling, endure. Within these walls, life continues, a delicate balance maintained by vigilance, discipline, and relentless attention. Even as darkness falls again, the circle holds, an unspoken testament to the human will, to the capacity for compassion, courage, and endurance amidst relentless fear. Every breath, every touch, every whispered word is a declaration. Survival is possible, even when the house itself seems to conspire against you. The night presses in with a heavier darkness than before, thick and suffocating. The quarantine house feels almost sentient, groaning under the weight of sickness, breathing with the collective pulse of its fragile inhabitants. Shadows cling to the corners like desperate hands, stretching across walls, floors, and faces, and every sound, every cough, creak, or whisper feels magnified, amplified by the tension in the air. You move carefully along the narrow aisles, watching Tomas, now asleep but restless, chest rising and falling in uneven rhythms. Joran lies near the brazier, breathing slowly, his fever muted but not gone. The new arrival shivers under her blanket, sweat glistening on pale skin. Each patient is a fragile ember, flickering but alive, and your hands, your presence, your vigilance are the kindling keeping them from fading entirely. Elswith hovers near Joran, murmuring softly, her hands instinctively adjusting blankets and monitoring pulse. Her whispered guidance is a fragile hymn against the encroaching darkness, her precision a shield for those too weak to defend themselves. You follow her rhythm, learning the intricate dance of care that has become survival here. Small, precise, unyielding acts repeated endlessly under stress. Aldred stands at the doorway, vigilant and unblinking, his figure a steady anchor in a room of uncertainty. His eyes scan the house like a sentinel, noting subtle changes in posture, color, and breath. One slip, one miscalculation could unravel the delicate balance that has sustained life for so long. Father Oswin kneels in the far corner, murmuring prayers for both the living and the dead. His voice is steady, a tether for all present, but even he is not immune to the oppressive weight of the house. The walls themselves seem to lean inward, pressing on every shoulder, every heart, every fragile ember of hope. Suddenly, a violent cough erupts from the new arrival, breaking the tenuous quiet. You rush to her side, hands moving with practiced precision, offering water, adjusting blankets, guiding breath. Aldred mirrors your movements, maintaining careful distance, scanning for any shift that could signal danger. The house groans in response, creaking and sighing as though acknowledging your efforts, the weight of human presence and mortality pressing against its beams. Hours pass in a rhythm that is both relentless and fragile. Each small victory, a pulse stabilizing, a fever easing, a cough softening, is monumental. Shadows stretch across the walls, merging and shifting with every flicker of the brazier's light, suggesting shapes that may or may not exist, but always serving as reminders of the omnipresent threat. By early morning, exhaustion settles over the room like a dense fog. You lean against the wall, muscles trembling, chest tight with fatigue, but your eyes remain alert. The last embers burn low in the brazier, casting a dim, golden glow over the room. Each flicker illuminates the delicate circle of life you have maintained, the fragile rhythm of survival held together by repeated, deliberate acts of care. Even in this exhausted state, you realize that the house, for all its oppressive weight, has become a teacher. It has taught you the delicate balance between fear and discipline, between compassion and calculation, between vigilance and endurance. Each night, each act, each breath is a testament to human resilience. The last embers of the brazier reflect in Joran's fevered eyes, in Tomas's restless hands, in the shivering frame of the new arrival. You understand then that survival is not always visible in grand gestures. It is found in the quiet, precise, relentless repetition of small actions sustained under pressure, even when hope flickers like a dying flame. And as the night stretches toward dawn, the house exhales collectively, its groans and creaks a lullaby for the living. Life persists, tenuous yet stubborn, fragile yet unbroken. Every breath, every whispered word, every careful gesture carries the weight of defiance against the relentless darkness. Dawn finally breaks, pale and fragile, spilling over the horizon in soft streaks of silver and rose. The quarantine house, which seemed to breathe and groan like a living entity through the long nights, now feels quieter, momentarily softened by the promise of daylight. Yet the smell of smoke, sweat, and lingering sickness still clings stubbornly, a reminder of the long struggle that has just passed. You move along the narrow aisles between pallets, body sore, muscles trembling from days of vigilance, yet every movement is purposeful. Joran's fever has receded further, his chest rising and falling in a steadier rhythm. Tomas stirs, weaker but breathing more evenly. The new arrival, pale but calmer, rests beneath her blanket, finally surrendering to a deep, unbroken sleep. Each small improvement is monumental, a testament to resilience in the face of relentless adversity. Elswith sits beside Joran, her hands gentle yet precise, tracing the invisible rhythms of recovery. Her soft murmurings have become a bridge between fear and reassurance, guiding each patient toward life with meticulous care. You follow her lead, internalizing every gesture, every motion that has held the fragile circle together. Aldred leans against the doorway, shoulders tight with fatigue, eyes scanning the room one last time. The weight of responsibility etched into his posture is a reminder that leadership here is not about authority. It is about unwavering attention, vigilance, and the courage to act when failure could mean death. Father Oswin kneels in the corner, his whispered prayers finally softened, more reflective than urgent. His voice carries gratitude now for the moments of life preserved, for the fragile victories that have emerged from the shadows. The cadence of his words is a gentle heartbeat, a rhythm that reinforces the fragile stability of the house. Your mother moves among the pallets, adjusting blankets, offering water, checking pulse. Her eyes meet yours, conveying a silent acknowledgement. The house, the patience, the care, it has all demanded everything you could give, yet here you are, still standing. The weight of exhaustion is immense, yet beneath it is a quiet, unshakable pride. The brazier burns low, the last embers glowing like the remnants of the struggle itself. Each flicker illuminates the worn, exhausted faces of caretakers and patients alike, reflecting the resilience that has been carved from fear, sweat, and relentless vigilance. You notice the subtle victories, hands that no longer tremble, breaths that deepen, eyes that blink with clarity. These small recoveries are monumental triumphs, imperceptible to the world beyond the house, yet profound in this enclosed, crucible-like space. The house itself seems to exhale, groaning softly, settling into a rhythm that feels almost like gratitude. The shadows that once twisted and reached now seem gentler, less threatening, as if acknowledging the human effort that has persisted despite relentless adversity. In these final moments before the full light of day, you understand the truth of the quarantine house. Survival is neither glorious nor sudden. It is composed of repeated acts of care, meticulous attention, and unwavering vigilance. It is measured in quiet persistence, in the courage to act when fear looms, in the precision of hands that adjust blankets, offer water, and monitor fragile pulses. You step back, allowing your eyes to sweep across the room. Caretakers exhausted, yet alert. Patients trembling, yet alive. The house heavy with memory, yet softened by resilience. Life persists, tenuous but unbroken, fragile yet enduring. And in this dawn you feel a subtle shift, the weight of darkness lifting just enough to allow hope to seep in. The plague may have stalked the village, claiming lives indiscriminately, but within these walls, humanity has endured. Every whispered word, every careful gesture, every measured act of vigilance has left its mark. The dawn is not merely light. It is a testament to persistence, compassion, and the quiet, unyielding resilience of those who refuse to surrender, even when the shadows seemed insurmountable. The house falls into a fragile calm. You breathe deeply, muscles aching, heart pounding, but a quiet pride settles over you. The dawn is not the end, but a beginning. a fragile, luminous reminder that even in the darkest places, life, care, and resilience can endure. And as the first rays of sunlight filter through the shutters, illuminating the weary faces of caretakers and patients alike, you understand the final truth. Survival is neither instantaneous nor guaranteed. It is forged in the relentless repetition of care, vigilance, and human courage, one breath, one gesture, one fragile ember at a time.